All right. So I mean, you have heard, I'm focusing on decentralized technology for resurgence of Bharat. And I will explain. I will not get so much into technology, but lay out the case why regulation, our approach, and private public policy needs to change. And I will give examples. I have interacted with a lot of government secretaries, in charge, I'll say, through various roles. So I have a fairly good feel of India. I will summarize my punchline here. China, innovate, then regulate. And you can see they have allowed Tencent and Alibaba and Baidu and Pinduoduo, huge, large corporations. The value they generate is enormous. Now they're trying to regulate. So innovate, then regulate. EU is regulate, then never innovate. The amount, it's become like blood doesn't flow through the veins. Too many restrictions are applied. US is innovate, and then so much money goes into the wealth of the innovators and the lobby groups. They formulate the laws. There's no regulation. वो free हो जाता है उनका, and hardly any guy gets convicted. I mean, 2008 credit crisis, nobody got. So there is innovate, not regulate. This is a quote from a very astute Chinese blogger. She does a lot of technology. She's based in Shanghai. And of course, Bharat, I say we do none of this. We only do jugaad pe jugaad. And that's part of the cynicism I have on a lot of headline news. Okay, we have gems, but we need to change a lot. So let me move forward. I will use examples of Hong Kong and Singapore, and I'm talking 1940 to 2060, to explain different ways. You can still get good performance by very different styles. There is no one roadmap. Despite what the New York Times or WhatsApp or the IMF may try to tell you, there is no playbook. They have no playbook for replicating success, etc. And a lot of it has to do with culture. Culture is a very important factor. Tools and technology have to enable culture to achieve something. So let me take an example. I've lived in Hong Kong and Singapore, made money in both places. So Hong Kong is very emergent. Hong Kong is a fine city in the sense that if the law does not say you cannot do X, you are fine to do X. Singapore is a fine city in the sense if you do anything which the law does not allow, you will get fined. So both are fine cities. The police is very visible in Hong Kong. I mean, the mobile all over the place. Police is hardly visible in Singapore. It's not that they're not effective. They have a very large informant network. So at late night, when the young Singaporean they get on the two-wheelers, they do the drag race and all that. Within 10 minutes, the police will be there. Their informers tell them, somebody calls them. There are very different ways of housing. For example, Singapore has leaseholds. The government subsidizes and gives housing development board urban, 2 clusters. Singapore has no such thing. So there's a Discovery Way, which is an urban resort. You take half an hour across the bay, you take a boat, and it's a resort. And you have Mongkok, which is the most dense urban area I've ever seen, more than 1 lakh a square kilometer. The skyscrapers are very large. It has to be almost noon, only 5 to 10 minutes before noon, and after that the sun will hit the road. It is so dense and so clustered. One consequence of that is social distancing is impossible in Hong Kong. And that's part of what has hit them in COVID. So Hong Kong, and though there is a zero COVID philosophy that has been done by Beijing, Beijing is in charge now, but they have had such an outbreak that they are now planning to do three cycles of testing for every resident in Hong Kong. They are not able to control it. Singapore also has had issues with COVID. They did all that thing, but they forgot about dormitories. Lot of urban migrant workers were there. Breakout ho gaya. So results are not always good. Both sides, highly controlled, normative, and completely free, also have failed. One of the things I will talk about is the variation in which market solves problems. So Hong Kong has a very unusual approach to transportation. They have trams, they have ferries, and the Shim Sha Tsui tram is the best joyride. I mean, it used to be $1, probably $5 now, across the sea. But there are 3 types of buses. And this is an example in India. I was consulting the Smart City Mission parking car RFP, and I told them, single line of thinking, you have to allow. So disabled people who want to park every day when they're working, so long-term parking. So urban parking problems have to be for different people. So Hong Kong had 3 types of buses. Blue bus is normal. Aapka fixed spot set. stop say time hai, fare hai. Red has time is there, but it's only stop the ending and thing is fixed, but it can skip in between stops and the fare varies. The green bus is more interesting. The green bus is meant for off-peak time. The red bus is more for peak time, hubs. No? Green bus is for retired people, and it has a flexible route. So it has the main road, but lots of people have apartments or houses, and Hong Kong is very steep. Kowloon and Hong Kong, very steep. 100 meters walking up with a shopping bag, you will start panting. So you pay $1 extra, the bus will, it's a short bus, 30, 40 people will go drop you right at your house. It's a very flexible, it's a taxi, but a larger taxi. So this is the way in which problems get solved bottom up. These are not regulated by the government, and I will come back to it. And I will talk about material constraints, which control a lot of things. Many of us understand US and we have a model, and we have wrong ideas about China, that it is dictatorial, it controls. Actually, China is far more capitalistic and far more decentralized than you may imagine. And I'll give you some examples, but I don't know how many of you are aware, and I have chosen this example of Tencent and Alibaba, both are very large organizations. Tencent, of course, invests a lot. So Byju's or Shopee or Kata, Flipkart, all investments. And in fact, Dream 11, which is the IPL sponsor last year, also has significant money from Tencent. Alibaba, of course, runs. So the thing to understand is that almost 80% of payments are done through the digital networks of Alibaba, Alipay, and WeChat. And WeChat is far more advanced than any other app that Facebook or Skype or Twitter has. So almost a million users, a billion users use them, 4 to 6 hours a day, 90 texts. Delivery of packages, the physical package delivery, 90% is done by Alibaba and Tencent. It's not the Chinese post is completely irrelevant. So this is the reason that Chinese Communist Party was very concerned, and they have been concerned for about 4 years. There is a policy paper. I was part of a study group for TIFAC, and we have recommended some changes from there. Chinese policy making is very, very pragmatic and very incremental. They don't do one big thing like farm laws for everyone in a bank. They will try in one city, one state, then they will learn, they will experiment. So all the regulation you are seeing on Alibaba, Tencent has been 6-7 years in the making. Very incremental, very thing, but the scale of private sector in China is enormous. That is the thing I would like you to recognize. And there are lots of variations. The biggest innovation China has done is selling mutual funds through celebrity video casting. They blog, they video cast. It's an enormous market. And this is room for India. We should not believe that the state has to do everything. A lot of it can be done through other solutions. So I will come to my theme, and I am quoting Arthur C. Clarke, who of course was in Sri Lanka when he wrote it. Any sufficiently advanced technology is magic. And we all know AI, artificial intelligence, but the most extraordinary technology is material science. You take your phone camera, Gorilla Glass. It can withstand shocks. It can withstand temperature differences, humidity, underwater, and it costs a fraction of what it would have taken in the past. Nuclear submarines have an inertial navigation system, and Sheshadrisha would know that, and it is $1 billion. It is a thing. A smartphone today can rival a thing at a fraction of a cost, and it doesn't need GPS. A lot of technology has terrestrial radio networks and Bluetooth, and in future quantum geometry and gravity sensing and all that, they can do it faster and cheaper. $2 billion. A nuclear submarine will take about 20 minutes from boot up to be able to lock into a thing. This will do within a minute. So consumer electronics is so far advanced that the US Department of Defense has requested Congress that they should be allowed to use consumer electronics and military technology, and that's happening. I think now I will come to my main thesis, which is the driver. So values is basically the religion angle, identity, consumerization, etc. Political power is the state, and we have democracy and feudalism, capitalism. Economy, we understand, experience, innovation. Technology is the largest force for change. Over the last 300 years, history is written typically with rulers and other things, but technology is driving society. Today, it's the single largest force for change. And you can see that happening in what Future Shock, which is a 50-year-old book, talks about it. If you look at society, everybody is not at the same axis on anything in terms of digital literacy, as Kumar talked about, or financial inclusion, or entrepreneurship, etc. People are at a different scale. But the society, the median, I'm not talking average. Averages don't take outliers. The median, let's say the center. And some segments will be 3 to 5 years ahead of time. And some segments will be 7 to 10 years behind. That is the cluster. Future Shock talks about the speed at which this is changing, that even people who are in the center feel they're lost out. Too many things are changed. Too many things don't fit the current model. And with COVID, with the warfare in Europe, I mean, we are going back to 40 years old geopolitics, where sovereign nations can be invaded and all that, and enormous amount of things are happening. So Future Shock is here, and therefore changing which Future Shock needs us to let go of command control. No one person can process all the information and variety and come back with a balanced decision. We have to experiment. We have to allow people to do experiments, which is what Hong Kong does, much more than Singapore does. And there are different ways of thinking it. When you merge the politics and values, this is an Israel type, so Jewish ideology. When you merge politics, economy, axis, that is China, state economy. And when you merge technology and economy, which is the part I play in, I call it technonomy. And that is decentralized technology. That's where the crypto economy is taking over. And which one will win? No clear answer. China has clearly won in a wall, centralized economy doing well. And the technonomy is probably going to win. There is plenty of evidence that the decentralized nature of internet, Web3, anybody can be a video blogger. You can replace India today, Times of India, or with a newscast, or you can blog, you can write. So the consumerization technology is also very great. Peer-to-peer networks are also rising a lot. I give an example of the problem it creates. This is something that I spent a lot of time with DOT 3 years back on trying to think that sectoral regulation does not work. Things are changing a lot. We are used to telecom license being licensed and done. But there is an enormous new technology, sub-gigahertz, which is LoRaWAN, which smart cities are using, a satellite-based network. And 3 years ago, when we talked about this feature, there was a report which we were helping prepare. I was laughed at, satellite kya karega? But today, gigabyte broadband can come from near Earth satellites. There are 22 startups in India. Can you imagine? There's one startup I'm mentoring, plans to launch about 90 satellites. It just costs $25,000 nano. I mean, the technology is changing the cost and value proposition. So there is a large case for private cellular networks. Many parks, ports, industrial townships, IoT 4, in Europe, in the US, are going for private cellular networks. This is not yet permitted in India, which is the case we were having, because innovation will happen. If I don't want to wait for Jio or Reliance, I can commission a private network in my neighborhood, in my township, etc. Ultimately, now Jio is also going for satellite, so this will happen. The regulatory mirage in India is very large because we have sectoral regulation which fails. So is LIC regulated by insurance? Not really now. Is it a bank? It has a lot of banks. Is it a listed company, or is it above regulation because it's a state-owned entity? Right now it's the last one. But these are things where we need to be future-proof. Regulation should be by activity, not by sector intent. You must be aware that we are living in a volatile and very complex, very agile and uncertainty, but adaptation of technology is very fast. Kumar talked about it. So India runs on Chai, WhatsApp, and UPI. Look at the adaptation rate of these technologies because they solve problems. People adapt. So adaptation of technology which solves their problems is very fast. You don't have to mandate. You just have to reduce the onboarding cost and make it happen. So the central part of what I'm saying is covered by this book. And if you have any questions, do ask me. Kumar has given more time. I'm planning to speak for about 30-35 minutes, and then we will question. So you feel free. There is a book called War Fighting. It's the official manual of the U.S. Marine Corps. It's a slim book and well worth reading. And this is a comment, Goodreads, and it's well worth reading because the U.S. Marine Corps does not use command control. It's an extremely decentralized, extremely flexible organization. It talks about people are not interchangeable. Just because everybody's used uniform, gives salute, they're not interchangeable. People have different strengths. Teams take time to gel, and nobody can maintain maximum performance. And you cannot give micro information. You cannot wait for sensing and control command. In a fog of war, the officer on the ground should have complete authority. So you give long-term goals, and in 15 seconds of the war starting, 15 minutes of the war starting, it has changed a lot. And things have to change. So this is a very decentralized organization. So a modern army has to be extremely decentralized, extremely flexible, and use different techniques for different sectors. That is the case I'm making, that decentralized technology is the future for a volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous world. Let me give an example from technology. If you look at the large listed companies, Amazon, Facebook, Google, Baidu, Tencent, a lot of their valuation comes from AI and big data technology. Almost all of this is open source, and most of them come from this penguin thing called Linux. 1994, there are 4,000 volunteers who contribute and make it. Microsoft Balmer called it evil, but Microsoft now is a platinum sponsor. It runs almost every industrial appliance, every smart appliance that you see, including your routers and Wi-Fi routers, everything is based on Linux. And it's an amazing model of bottom-up collaboration, but major effect. And Bollywood is this thing. I call it the Ajanta moment. So if you go to Ajanta, they are beautiful paintings, must have taken decades for them to build. But you won't find artist names. It is done, patrons have funded it. It is done anonymously. It's a creative common good. So this is the common good. So there is a way of funding these volunteers, Gitcoin and crypto and others, they are there. But the scale of impact that volunteers and decentralized organizations can achieve is enormous. There are technology, Linux coordinates through Gitcoin and all that is there. Let me turn towards the hangama in India, where taxes are collected and the government tries to do everything, even social philanthropy. The private sector does far more and is far more effective than the government is. Akshay Patra, millions of people are fed. It's a private sector thing. Langas, Gurudwara, Dhan Foundation, one of our friends at IIM runs it. Thousands of schools in Madurai. Zoho, which is a startup which is done. Sridhar Vembu is setting it up in villages and rural areas. We have 100 TV channels. You have a choice. They won't survive. They will survive. I don't know. But there is tremendous amount of philanthropy that is happening with private and without private. I don't know if you're aware of the Ugly Indians. There are volunteer groups. Like my apartment complex in front, it has got mess, a lot of things. The Ugly Indians took it up, they cleaned it up, they painted it, and they read it. Social Alpha, it's a Tata Sons, it's actually a VC, but it doesn't operate. This is Social Impact. Manoj, who's my friend, runs it, and they are helping a lot of things. So healthcare, disabled, agri, etc. These are viability gaps because technology will not become economically viable to scale for social things. So 7 or 8 years, the price at which the consumer needs to get free or something and the price of manufacture are different. So you fund it. As the technology adoption goes in, the price of producing will go down and the consumer benefits the quality, pays more. This is how water came in. You pay 20 rupees for a water cup and you pay cents for free water. So there's a difference in price and scale, but quality water at a railway station happened because viability gap was funded. So a lot of things can be solved through problem solvers. There is the Global Alliance for Mass Entrepreneurship, which is trying to do it. Take TikTok, which was banned. It's all over. It's from every class, level class 3 of India, class 2, class 1. So this is what we are saying, that people do not, people are a different type. Some are very money oriented, but there are a set of people who wish to achieve likes, philanthropy, social impact. I see a lot of the entrepreneurs in the IT industry, even salaried staff, are contributing. They contribute to social causes. Making it easier, you can achieve a lot. Let me sum up by giving an example of 2 areas. I was charge of a group which did a report for TIFAC, and we submitted this thing, so I borrowed from it. We should allow problem solvers to solve problems. If you look at the India consumer startup stack, the first trillion economy is as small as Mexico, 110 million people. And that's where a lot of startups have gone. That is where Ola, OU, etc. went. The second set is now happening, which is the 300 billion GDP, about 104 million, like Philippines. That is where Share It and a lot of things are happening, Katabook, etc. The third sector, which is the $1 billion, that is also happening. If you look at the investments in agri, etc., huge amount of things are happening, and all that is happening. All this will happen. And there is a change in value perception. COVID has hit it, but the consumer activity, the oversourced is happening. So for example, you don't have to spend $1 trillion making manufacturing capacity to compete against China. That's not the way to go. You take artists, creators, artisans, enable them with 3D printing, technology, etc., and they will survive. You don't have to make large scale things. Our play is not economics of scale, but economics of variety. We will do different types of economics, making similar things, artistic creation, changing. That is where our IT BP had that. And look at mRNA. I mean, life sciences, during the COVID passion-driven thing, there's tremendous thing that India can do in life sciences, personalized medicine, etc. So our approach should not be mass commercialization, which is the US model and which is the Chinese model. Our scale should be economics of variety, of doing similar things differently with small tweaks, artistic, creative, and crypto economy supports it. And we can talk about it because it allows the data owner to control. I mean, if you take, there is a crypto protocol called audio. It lets people stream music. So like Spotify, etc. type. The difference is in a Spotify distribution or Hollywood distribution, the artists get only about 5 to 10% of the take. But in the audio or royalties, the crypto economies, the entire rest, the artist gets about 80 to 90%. The rest of the economy, because the cost of distribution is. So the crypto economy is completely decentralizing, and data owners are getting a much larger slice of the value and a much larger global community. And that's the way to think about it. I don't know why the RBI is worried about crypto, because frequent flyer airlines or postal stamps did not upset a 5 trillion economy. So monopolies have to learn to compete. The crypto economy will reduce the ability of RBI to keep printing currency and changing interest rates. They will have to compete. They will have to offer value. We can meet all these expectations. We can be economically productive, socially just. We can go up the curve. These are the social development goals. All of this is possible. Not by every project, but different projects will do different things. There are a lot of social impact innovation. If you take healthcare, there are Indian startups which are doing eye tests for, cancer tests, etc., or radiological tests at a fraction, 100 rupees may radiologist, and in fact, the world is now following them. So the value parameter with technology, the scale can be completely different, and we can deliver a lot. What is required? If there are no questions, I will go to the more controversial part of my statements. And I will drink some water.
Questions, we'll take it at the end, Arvindji.
All right, no problem. Just let me drink a little bit.
Sure.
What we need to understand is that private wealth exceeds that of the state in a good economy. If we stop trying to curtail formal, informal taxation, and these are debates, but we are killing our Indian economy by reducing GDP growth from 8% in 2016 to 4% in 2019 and negative. It's a self-created amputation. Private wealth should be much larger than the state, and it will do good. Elon Musk is a single competitor to China. वो SpaceX करता है, Tesla EV करता है, Boring करता है, neurological machine बनाता है. Exceeds NASA, exceeds this. So geniuses should be encouraged, and they will create wealth. Let them create wealth. Non-state actors are the drivers, whether it is warfare, I mean ISI, fundamentalists, etc., or media, or innovation, or it is not the state. State has the ability to curtail, has the ability to send the police, has the ability to do a lot of things, but it does not create wealth. Today, I mean, a lot of times in the past they have done it, so it was a very good activity, but primarily impulse of the state is to control, to clobber, and that is not good. Lot of our legal policies are absolutely outmoded for current things. So for example, Ola drivers, are they employees, are they freelancers? They are somewhere in between. So a lot of the new framework, we should think not in terms of laws which are frozen in stone for 20 years, but small experimentation. Allow some states to work out different models of doing it so that these things can be then sorted out. Mass affluence is possible, frictionless adoption, and this is a quote. Why should we make policies by guesswork? Why don't we do a feedback loop, do something for 2-3 years, sandbox, and then modify, and then modify and bring it up? And this is the whole experimentation in technology. You don't try to make everything in one go. You do agile movements. No, you do small things, 6 months, 2 months, etc., and you keep changing. What are the things that would make a difference? Work from home, the city center is less important. This is one of the big things that has happened. There is a very classic study for Seoul, which has much more higher density, where the cost of staying near the city center so that you can go to the office and commute was a big problem. It took up 30% of people's cost. But now with this thing, they are staying further, metro stations, etc. The cost of the suburban areas has gone, but overall, and they can actually have more savings even with the lesser salary from the offices. So most companies, they're letting you work further away. Salaries are not getting changed, but you may not get promotions, increment in salary fast. So over 3 to 4 years, guys living outside Seoul will start earning less salaries, but they will still save more. You can make vertical villages, prosumers, 3D printing, etc. So and no need to finance hard assets. Mahendra Dhoni comes from Ranchi, which is my hometown. He is a brand. Can you imagine? Virat Kohli, aggressive, but he's the brand. और भारत पे का जो है वो अभी sack हो गया. I mean fraud allegation. But you need aggressive brands. You cannot compete in today's world without a different set of cultures and values, which will then succeed. We need experimentation. So land records, it's a mess in India because you pay property tax, but the government does not assure you that the land is yours. You will have to go to court and fight for lots of areas. Ridiculous government. पैसा भी लेता है, कुछ काम भी नहीं करता है. I mean, you have to force the government to take ownership. If you are collecting property taxes, you certify the land. You assure property ownership. Urban local bodies. This is a joke. Panchayats have more power than mayors in a city. Bangalore ka BPMP, BESCOM. I mean, electricity is supplied by one unit, controlled by the central state government. Water is by someone else. This thing. I mean, how can you have urban local bodies work? And urbanization is the core to economic activity. 80% of India's economic value added comes from the city centers. They don't come from villages. I mean, agricultural economy and all that. So we have to focus on, and therefore, decentralization. we did a project for smart cities, smart street lights. You move the street lights out of the electricity authorities, make it a common network, lights, sensors, air pollution, etc. You can achieve a lot. Ugly Indians should be able to bid for projects. Associations, citizens should be able to bid for projects and do L1 tender, etc. Should do. Look at the jobs being created. Ola, Zomato, Denso, etc. The amount of jobs they have created is large, and much more can be done. So we have to be able to do this, and this is the future. So if we reorient our way from command control and one rule fits one. So for example, one rule fits one. You take India. We are a large economy, very little diversity. Vegetarian है, non-veg है, but high sugar, diabetics के लिए ज़्यादा choice नहीं है. Those who are who have a problem with wheat, I mean, there's not much option. So we don't have variety in consumers, variety. We have a one side choose one. We have to change. That would be my area. I will stop here and we will take questions. Hi.
Okay, your presentation is through? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That's good. So it's open. Anybody who wants to, for this one, just put up your hand and raise your question. Unfortunately, I'm relatively illiterate in this matter, so my power even to regulate, as he disdainfully calls it, is very limited here. So I won't even do this one. But in fact, Arvindji, you will be pleasantly surprised to know that Telangana, about 3 days back, have started issuing e-land pattas and e-land documents.
IIT Kanpur is involved in this project. Yeah.
Oh, I see. That's good. And one of the suggestions I had also given to one of the governments with whom I had a small fling is that the stamp duty should go in total. It should be replaced by a yearly collection of 0.25% or 0.5% or something, which will have a insurance thrown in. That within a year, if your title is not settled, the land value will be made good to you types.
All these things are very easy once we move to decentralized blockchain crypto economy. But coming to the e-thing, Telangana, Tamil Nadu has the best policy of using blockchain technology centers. Karnataka has the best sandbox policy. There is an official sandbox you can create. So states are beginning to implement. If we allow the courts not to try to do uniformity, I'm amazed at the judges, Supreme Court trying to put down one law for every state. We should allow states to have different laws. We should let states experiment. We will learn what works, what doesn't work. And cultures are different. What may work in Bangalore may not work in Sikkim. So we should allow diversity to do. But there is tremendous room for hope because we have to create jobs. We have an explosion on our hand if we don't create enough jobs. And we have to figure out how to do it.
That's true. And who is Mr. BSG? You can come on the screen and raise your question. You are on mute. You are on mute.
Yeah. I am Vishwanath Sen Gupta. I got the invite from Sudeep Nandi.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Yeah. I was involved in, architecting Aadhaar and implementing it throughout the nation. I was the program director.
Very good.
And a lot of government projects. So that's my background. Now, the question here, one point came out, which I have a different of opinion, that if the economy has to grow, the urban has to grow. Possibly, if you see, the urban system is failing in India, and it has choked to the maximum. So if the country has to grow, you have to grow the rural or the semi-urban economy. One very good example which have been used is the Zoho. The way he opened up centers in the villages of Tamil Nadu, and the economy is growing around that. So you have to go back to the tier 2, tier 3 cities and the rural if the economy has to grow. Anyway,
Can I respond to your observation? Your voice is breaking. You are on cellular phone, so your voice is breaking.
Maybe you take off the video and speak.
Urbans, it will choke. So I hope I could put in my point.
You're pointed to your point. Your argument is that the focus on urbanization is inappropriate. It has to be rural. It has to be more tier 2, tier 3 cities because we cannot cope with the volume of urbanization.
See, just a correction. I'm not saying appropriate, but I'm saying urbans are saturated. The metros are saturated.
Let me answer that. Let me answer that. See, we need to understand what is our expectation. My expectation is not Daridra Narayan Bharat. I want to compete with China. I need to be economically powerful to be able to wage a geopolitical conflict, splinternet, etc. So we have to go from 5 trillion to 25 trillion in a decade or in 2 decades less. Our goal, our ambition is higher. That is not going to happen unless we invest significant capacity building through private or public means. We don't have enough money to make 300 smart cities. So we have to choose and invest in certain areas. Part of it can be rural technology. Take gobar gas. It's a very appropriate technology for energy. But I run the IoT forum. I've been involved. We have gone to 80 villages, etc. All of them fail after 1 year. Why? Because this chemical, the organic chemical thing is a complex technology and the feedback loop, it needs fine tuning, experimentation. We do it very cheap. You don't have skills to maintain it. So 80% of gobar gas plants stop working after 18 to 24 months. It's an enormous waste. Same thing happens in hospitals. You import expensive equipment. You don't train technicians. You don't build ecosystems. The equipments are not functioning after some time. So we need to understand that we have to choose clusters where a lot of it goes to rural areas, which is fine, which is agro, fishing, processing, etc. It's not farming. Farming cannot generate enough surplus, and there's a lot of issues.
Sir, I have a point here. I mean, fundamentally.
Can I finish?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
If you look at the census in India, there is a lot of paracities. That means Mohali is an urban area. So if you do the census properly, 50% of India's population is anyway in urban areas, near urban or para-urban areas. The issue of cluster port is a question of centralized hubs, which I talked about Seoul. If everybody has to go to Nariman Point, you have a problem. But now Mumbai has shifted to BKD. I mean, urban problems can be solved by creating satellites, creating clusters, letting people make economic decisions. You cannot get doctors to go to villages. You may try hard, but they don't. So the problem can be solved by creating a system, an economy which starts making it worthwhile. What Zoe is doing is correct, and that's an example I have quoted. But in India, too much political capital and money is wasted in suboptimal projects which take years and don't deliver results. We do not have that luxury.
Sir, can I now come in?
Go ahead.
Yeah. Make your intervention short. Yeah.
When we talk of rural, it's not agri. The service sector can straight away go to rural. What is happening in urban? I mean, one is a technology, work from home, sub centers, small centers.
Okay,
why it is available today?
Okay, so how will you make it happen? You want to farm a rural, or you want to let the market drive people to rural areas?
I'm coming to that. See, today the network, the communication, the technology has reached the rural, and thanks to COVID, the work from home has happened. I mean, if I take my startup, I have people from deep Bihar, I have people from deep South, and we have been doing successfully for last 2 years, where people thought places like Gorakhpur, places like Muzaffarnagar, places like, Gumla, near your place. I have place from Gumla, since you are from Ranchi. And we have been doing it successfully, not we, the entire ecosystem is being doing. Now that is one proof that the rural or subsection what we are talking in is beyond agri. Now if you link only rural to agri and allied agri, obviously what you are saying is correct. But the thought process changes what I am trying to put in. The service sector can straight away go to the rural, and it is happening today. The financial sector can go. because anyway we are servicing and we are location agnostic. The technology sector can go.
I would be very happy if this scales up. There is absolutely no problem if the city center is less important.
So I am not saying city is not important, but parallelly, when we talk of 5 trillion to 35 trillion, I mean, 100 cities in India, 150 cities in India, you cannot reach. If you, I mean, you have talked of China. I have extensively worked in China and I've seen that. See, China has gone to the rural area. They have developed the rural economy and rural service economy and rural manufacturing economy. I mean, Shanghai is only a business center today. But if you see where their factories are, where their services are, where their Alibaba is located.
I don't know what are we debating. Market and government have to work in manners that allows people to do far faster, far better than they have in the past, which is the theme I'm saying. And we don't know which models work. So allow states to experiment, allow more cities and places to do different things, allow more decentralizers, allow more innovation, allow more things to happen faster.
Mr. BSG, hello. I appreciate your comments, and we take the point, and we will move on to the next person, Mr. Sardana. Thanks for joining. All the same.
Thank you, sir. 2-3 important issues. I think it's a very, very vital issue which is we are discussing today. I have 2 different observations when we are talking about scientific developments and adoption in India. Very important example was given by Honorable Speaker that in US, you talk about Google, you talk about Amazon, you talk about Tesla. Why they are able to invest in technology and grow, which we don't discuss in India, that most of these CEOs themselves are technocrats.
Correct.
They understand technology, they understand the power of technology. So wherever you have CEOs, MDs and boards which are powerful and understand the technology, they respect technology, they invest in R&D and they do it. Why we are not discussing the composition of boards and composition or capabilities of CEOs and MDs in India? If you have a BA graduate with MBA with 30 years experience as a CEO of a technology company, because he knows how to manage finance better, or maybe HR better, maybe logistics better. I was talking to some international headhunters. Okay, why Indian CEOs are getting suppose 5 crores, whereas the same size of company in US is getting 5 million? The answer was very simple. Because these American or international CEOs, those who are getting high salaries, they are subject specialists. They know how to drive and where is the technology taking shape and how to drive and steer the company. And that was a classic example that in India, we have not given due weightage when it comes to selection of CEOs and MDs, that what is their technological competency. They may be very good managers. Are they technology leaders? So that is one aspect. What is your thought? Let me put it one. Second thought is the previous discussion, rural versus urban. My point is, what is the definition of rural nowadays? Because if rural means backward, poor infrastructure, that was our traditional mindset. Or minute we convert that rural with urban facilities, will you still call them rural?
No.
So my way of looking at it is that there is a transition between rural versus urban. There is nothing called fixed terminology that this is a rural area or this is an urban area. It changes with development parameters. So this debate that we have to focus on rural, I don't think that is logical. We have to see that we should provide all the enabling infrastructure to deliver the service. So why we are debating rural and urban? That is my second query.
I think rural urban is a policy issues. My feeling is the government should not try to decide. You make it easy for medicine guys to go, doctors to go to rural, etc. We know the difficulty with getting doctors, etc. So market has to solve it. Let me come back to your question. I think the quality of people that you need varies with the industry, the time frame. But if you look at the Indian startup sector, We are scaling up. So, Ola or a Flipkart or a Zomato or these are large successful organizations. You may complain, but they have scaled up. They have hired lots of people and they are run by engineers. Some of them are not even profit making. If the government does not interfere, there's a lot of pushback at SEBI now. Companies which are not profit making should not be listed. That is the wrong way of looking at it. I mean, you have had problems with Yes Bank, ILFS, you have problems with Vijay Mallya. There are a lot of problems with the traditional thing. RBI has had many cooperative banks which have gone under and their depositors are not going to get money for 4-5 years. They don't talk about that. Market will solve these issues of what talent, what quality, the valuations of private companies, consumer adoption. It's happening. If you don't interfere, but you encourage, you facilitate, you need guardrails for crime, corruption, fraud, etc. But if you allow this to happen, India has the talent. We have the funding capital. You make it easy for crowdsourcing funding. You make it easy, like US, etc. has done. 5,000 people can now contribute to a startup. We don't even need to raise some funding. So if we make it easy for experimentation of startups, SMEs to grow, this talent problem will go away. Companies will start solving customer problems and grow. The mix of people will change. You look at a lot of the startups, they are not driven by conservative, old style people. There are a lot of technologies, etc. And same way, as I mentioned, we should compete on not economies of scale. We can't compete with China, etc. But we have to do variety. We have to do artisans, toys. We have to do personalized medicine. So there is a whole range of areas where we have a competitive advantage with the world. That is where we need to focus instead of trying to build large factories which tie up a lot of money. And these can be, as I call, pan-India. I mean, this can be small cities, outside small urban areas. This urban-rural debate is wrong. Politically, a lot of mileage goes for vote bank in rural. It does not generate economic value. We have to have much more surplus. We have to create a lot of capability clusters, a lot of schools, a lot of hospitals, a lot of education, a lot of 3D centers, etc. That will not happen by wasting money. We have to husband our resources to get bang for the buck.
Okay.
Thanks.
And Mr. Arvind, maybe you can take a look at his this one. He's also consulting with the Shriram Industrial Research now. Of course, they are not in your domain of information technology. They are more into material science, waste to wealth, chemical, biomedical, biochemical, etc. Maybe worth looking at it. Maybe you can fuse something new out of them. I was boggled, when I visited. Now let's go on to Mr. Rajappa. You have to unmute yourself and speak.
Yeah. Hi, Arvind. Thanks for your.
He's also in Bangalore, by the way.
Hi, Arvind. Thanks for your presentation. Actually, it's been very insightful. Just to say that, in terms of the entire spectrum of what technology can really do, I think we are at the moment just grappling with just a few areas in which we have been able to accomplish. But just to, table one perspective really, in terms of the contradiction that you see, how do you think that contradiction will get addressed in terms of the wealth creator and the control that you see being exercised by the various government agencies?
See, this is a very large policy and nobody knows. So there are three axes in which we need to think. One is, actually, I have it here, I think. I have it here, values, this one. So one is values, that is a religious angle. And this is core to a lot of cultures. I mean, the Middle Ages, Anglo-Saxon culture, Israel, ideology comes to. In India, maybe values, religious is a large thing. And historically, that has been the driving force of a lot of cultures. We have the state, which has the monopoly on power, which has the monopoly on the police, the legal power, the judiciary and the state, which has different models, which controls. We have the economy, which can be natural resources based, etc. And we have technology. So right now, there is a China model where the state takes over. and is taking over the economy, controlling the technology, controlling that. And it has succeeded. Also, we may not like it, human rights, all that hangama hai. But clearly they have raised poverty levels. They have succeeded as the hardware factory of the world. They have raised their wealth. They have built military and economic power. You have a different model of technology-driven, the US, etc., which has also survived. And so we as a culture have to pick and choose from these values to be able to generate the freedom. We cannot have freedom in everything. In any system, there has to be certain guardrails, certain areas of centralized control, law, and order. But we should not have excessive control, excessive law, which is what happened to the Communist Party Russia, because too much centralization has other problems, too much decentralization has other problems. Currently, we have too much centralized. One nation, one law, one TV license, one car license. We are going towards too much centralization.
That's exactly.
And we have to get off that hang-up. And the judiciary and the government in Delhi government, both are trying to establish one uniform way of doing things. It is suicidal. Farm law is a classic example. There was no need to bring it for all the states. Just do for 3-4 states and make it work. Others will follow. So we need to let go of too much centralization in economy. We need to let go of too much centralization in values. We're a very diverse culture, food habits, etc. Unfortunately, our political system is trying to do that, and we have to make those choices. We have to get the balance between what is uniform, what is centralized, and what is diverse, and what is decentralized. My argument is that economy and technology should be highly decentralized. And certain guardrails are needed that the political system will sort out, the judiciary will sort out. I hope the judiciary has some wisdom, because many of the decisions are destroying economic activity.
Arvind, if you're through with that answer,
yeah.
I had asked you to spend about 5 minutes on this crypto. Yeah. There are some comments in the chat box and requests for this one, if you can spend some time on crypto.
Can. 1 minute. Let me get rid of this.
Desikan, I'll come back to you after this intervention.
So crypto may, there are 3 parts to crypto, and one is price action. People become very wealthy very fast, go ahead, and that is what drives all said and done. That is what drives people to go to crypto. So volatility of crypto prices is not a bug; it's a feature. People think lottery hai, mil jayega, kuch kharid lega. That is not the part that is of interest to me. There are 2 other parts of crypto. One part is a business model, a high-level business model, which reduces intermediaries. It's a bankless finance. So, for example, if you take RBI gives about 30 to 60,000 crores dividend to the government. How does it do it? It is seigniorage. It prints rupee. It creates value from thin air, because rupee may be 70 rupees to the US dollar or 75 gold value, but relative to rupee, it just creates out of thin air. That's happened in crypto. So Bitcoin or Ethereum, you are a central bank of your cryptocurrency. It's like a geopolitical unit. By printing more coins, you're creating seigniorage. And then instead of taking the seigniorage and paying to the government, it is distributed to depositors. So if you take US dollar, the interest rate on US dollar in the US is close to about 1%. But if you take the equivalent in crypto, stable coins, USDC, USDT, interest rates vary from 4% to 20%, and the risk-free rate is around 6%. By risk-free, I mean there is absolutely no risk, because the Ethereum blockchain, it's the tax collected by transactions on Ethereum. It's not a Ponzi scheme. So Ethereum pays about 6% if you deposit it for a year. So the risk-free rate in crypto economy is very competitive, because the RBI and the Fed, by printing a lot of money, they have brought the yields down. They have a competition. So $160 billion have gone to crypto deposits, which is what the IMF and all those guys, and which is what RBI is worried. That's competition. Yeah, that is number 1. So one is bankless world, where the intermediaries, the banks, the stockbrokers don't get money. Anyone in crypto can be a market maker to a stock exchange, and for $100 you can become a market maker. Okay, that is one. Second is the deflationary economics. We are used to a fiat economy, not gold back. The US dollar was not gold back from 70s, and they have printed. So if you look at US dollar versus rupees, the ounce of gold, US dollar has depreciated by 80% since 1972. We don't realize it. We use US dollar as a measure of unit, and a currency is not a store of value. US dollar is a depreciating currency. Bitcoin is a store of value. It is volatile, but its value has gone up. It is not going down. So the macroeconomics in Bitcoin is deflationary. The entire Austrian school of economics is used. It's deflationary. It's a very different set of Every currency is a central bank. It has its own economy, inflation, deflation. Most currencies burn money. So the fees collected by Ethereum, they are destroyed. They don't want to create additional coins to inflate Ethereum. So Ethereum prices will go. And it's an enormous model where there is no police action. Nobody is jailing you. So it's economic nudges and incentives. Billions of dollars flow into a new protocol or a new thing. I'll give you, forget hi-fi. There is a bottom-up IoT network called Helium. 2018, I started paying attention. So Wi-Fi router you buy. And it will mint Helium coin, HNT, and it does connection for IoT devices. It's an extraordinarily difficult thing to grow this thing. You pay some rupee to people, you won't get excitement. But crypto ka advantage because price action. So Helium has gone from 0.4 cent to $30 over 4 years. Enormous number of people are buying, they're benefiting. So the appreciation of the currency, you are working in a country which has a Forex, everything is priced in a Forex. The Forex gains value against your fiat. This is the competition RBI worries about. This is the competition IMF worries about. Because the economic value being created by deflationary crypto economics far exceeds the fiat currencies. And there is a massive transfer of economic value happening to crypto holders. So it's a very different economic cycle. It's a very different business model, and it's well worth experimenting.
Thank you. And Mr. Muthuswamy, you have any comments? You have put some remarks on the... Hello? Okay. Desikan, you can go. Mr. Desikan?
Yes, Kumar.
Yeah.
Good evening, Mr. Arvind. I think it was very, very interesting.
He's also from Bangalore. He
Oh,
also works for an electronics company, I think.
exactly. That's right. So actually, I'm mostly in alignment with whatever Mr. Arvind said. And I just wanted to share a couple of points in support of what he said. See, we are living in an exciting times, as I can say. Most of us in the audience today have seen right from the telecom, urgent, ordinary, lightning calls to where we are today. And in terms of technology on various things, very clearly, technology is the route to wealth creation. If you look at Ashwath Damodaran values the Fungam stocks more than 5 trillion plus. That just shows how important technology is playing a role in wealth creation. But having said that, the question is how much government, how much private. I think, again, I'm in sync with you. It is only the private who can create huge amounts of wealth. Government's job is governance. It is not supposed to be in the business, very clearly. But to be fair to the government, I think they have done exceedingly well in areas like automation and technology, in IT, GST, land records, even trademarks and patents. The way the government has gone about doing that, I think they have done their bit. And but the question is, when it comes to today's situation, as all of you would agree, electronics is very important, but unfortunately, the ecosystem in India for electronics is not great. Like Kumar said, I work for an electronics company, but let me tell you, 85% of my raw material is imported.
Correct.
Government has been trying to do a lot of things, but I think we have still a long way to go. And that is where my point comes, like, a country like Taiwan today supplies so much of a semiconductor for the whole world, and we have lost the race. So now government is trying to do something in that area, but I hope how much they will be successful, we need to watch. One more point. Shall I stop with that? Yeah.
I think I would like to address this, and there's also a question, and then we'll come back.
Sure.
See, I'm part of the IoT ISA, Electronic Semiconductor Association. I've been part of the government discussions on semiconductor, and that's part of the recommendation. For initially, there was a desire to be avant-garde, 4 nanometer, very small, impossible. The capacity, the skills. So our recommendation, which they have adopted, is stay with the old one. 26, 28 nanometer, old one. And that's what is used in industrial appliances. You don't need to manufacture millions. You need 1 lakh small capacity fiber. The second suggestion I had given, which was, of course, I was laughed out of the room, is don't try to build a fab in India. It needs too much clean water, too much disciplined thing. Epson का एक old plant है Japan में, buy it and arrange with the Japanese government to make it a duty-free STP. So diplomatically, it's Indian territory. Sanctions में कम हो जाएगा. Australia will do, Singapore. So the smart thing is we cannot provide the pure water. This fabs take a lot of water. I mean, and clean water and clean energy. It's a high precision things. So we really are making a mistake trying to put a lot of money. Chandigarh ka SCL, no, it only does a small amount. It hasn't scaled up with this thing. So anyway, the government has this desire to make it in India. Hopefully they will succeed, but unnecessarily we misunderstand the levers which we can play around. A smarter area is to buy a small territory in Taiwan or in Japan or Australia and convert that to a fab. But coming back to another question, and I hope that addresses. In electronics, this Shenzhen import is a big issue. I have hundreds of startups which are struggling. Hopefully we will get that done. But let me come back to another question Ramchandraji had about cryptocurrency. So let me explain. The word currency is wrong. So traditional economics says unit of account, medium of exchange, store of value. These are the 3 attributes. This is wrong, utter rubbish. A currency can never be a store of value if you keep printing currencies, because it will deflate, which is what has happened to US dollar, which is what has happened to other things. So if you measure your wealth in US dollar, you are confused. You should be measuring your wealth in a more productive asset. I suggest you measure in Bitcoin, or you measure a trillionth of the Nifty 50, all the productive companies of India, uska market cap lijiye, uska 1 trillion lijiye, that's a Nifty coin. If you measure yourself in a Nifty coin, you have a better unit of measure of wealth, because the currency is a medium of exchange. It is stable. Rupee is stable in the short term. But after 7 years, the gold will have gone up. Rupee is not stable. Rupee is no longer has the purchasing power. It's a myth. It's a brainwashed myth that a currency is a store of value or a currency is a unit of account. Rupee is not a unit of account. You should not measure your wealth in rupee. Or if you measure, you should do inflation adjustment, which is what statisticians do, nominal income and inflation adjusted income. And there are a lot of issues with that. So cryptocurrency, crypto assets are of different types. There are stable coins which are used for mediums of exchange, and there are plenty of them. Even Bitcoin has a lightning payment network. You can pay in a fraction of a minute, and the cost of payment is in cents. It's not very expensive. If you use Ethereum as a payment mechanism, it's expensive. It's too slow. But there are payment channels. Cello is the first thing which is web friendly. Cello, it's a German thing. And Deutsche Bank uses it. It's your phone acts as a blockchain. You don't even need nodes, etc. So medium of currency is there. Ripple is a very classic example. They will win a suit. So as a store of value, phenomenal. If you look at Bitcoin, Ethereum, etc., as a store of value, they have outperformed any other asset class over a decade. 12 saal, 15 saal mein. So it is volatile. But that is the nature of the world economy. You take Reliance, uska share price. Then Jio, Facebook invested, Google invested, it went up 60% overnight in 2 weeks. So what is stable? You take Apple, it went from 2 trillion to 3 trillion in 18 months. It is the largest company in the world, most followed. Kya innovation kiya? So valuation is a different thing. It is volatile, and Bitcoin and crypto assets will be volatile. That's part of something you have to get used to. Don't like it, don't think. So I don't think cryptocurrencies will die. There is a lot of attempt to control. Abhi the government, Canada, Russia, they want to stop banks from dealing. All those are there, but just like the internet was nuclear proof, Crypto is designed to withstand state sanctions. China has tried to every time China does something, 2-3 week ke liye Bitcoin girta hai, then it goes up. It has always gone up higher. 2013, 2017, 2020. So I don't think, of course, crypto is going through a very classic fire test because the US and European Union want to sanction anyone using crypto from Venezuela, Iran, and Russia. So there's a lot of attempt to do it. Hopefully they fail. Yeah, thanks.
Desikan, you have any question? Or Mr. Mutswamy, you want to come in?
Thank you, Mr. Kumarasamy and Mr. Rajagopal has given the invitation. Thank you. I am also from TNAU. Actually, we are facilities in rural areas is taking place because we are having even for planning for small startup in our rural place.
Correct.
And is the government is also in educating and empowering our students. There is no new development or new schools or finishing schools exist in especially for the graduates coming from arts and science or engineering graduates. What is your idea, Mr. Arvind Tiwari, to address this?
I think this is beyond my pay grade. I cannot solve every problem for everyone. My solution is let the market solve it, let the government. So the Supreme Court, which collected 17,000 crore from 2G licenses, should not have allowed it to the government and asked it to set up schools in various places or equip ports, etc. We need to force the government to use the money in more productive fashions than building a lot of projects which are never executed well, which overrun. Ab Bangalore ka metro dekhiye, 25 saal se ban raha hai, 12 saal. I mean, there is a classic inefficiencies which I as a taxpayer pay. So the problems of the world cannot be solved by one guy's idea. Different people will have different ideas. There should be, for example, my suggestion, which I had given is allow people to contribute as crowdsourced equity to a lot of startups, NGOs. It doesn't have to be donations. I can take, which is what crypto allows. You can take equity share, which is a crypto coin in any decentralized organization, get going. वो प्रॉफिट करेगा तो पैसा आ जाएगा, नहीं होगा तो नहीं होगा. So there are different ways of funding lot of small action. Doesn't need VC, doesn't need government policies, but we need to allow that to happen.
Right.
And the last two questions, Mr. Desikan and then Mr. Sardana, and then we'll wind up. Desikan.
Not a question, Kumar, but the point I wanted to say about rural and the city, I think technology has to come up in all the areas. Now, the way I see it is, for example, government has opened up the space sector, and now there are at least 5 startups who are claiming that they are going to put up like hundreds of satellites in the next 2-3 years.
23.
Exactly. So now, at least I know of 5 which are very.
I can tell you 23.
Yes, and on the other side, I also saw, I heard this girl from Delhi, 2 IITians have done animal. It's a platform for cattle trading. It was amazing to see. They are now valued at 175 crores. So the point I'm trying to say is, I think technology has to come from all the possible angles, and more so right now from the private sector than the government. That's one. But again, I just wanted to say in this forum that government has recently launched the DLI, Design Linked Incentive Program. I think that's a very interesting one because a lot of engineers come from India. We create IPs for the multinational companies and nothing stays here. And government has recognized this fact and they're trying to give design linked incentive, which is very, very interesting as such. I just thought I'll say that here. Thank you, Mr. Arvind. It was very, very interesting and exciting.
Thank you.
Mr. Sardana?
I think it's a good discussion. I have a, when we are talking about issues and from where to start, my concern is we expect government to move away, but we also have a very horrible corporate governance situation in this country. And we expect that, there should not be any policeman to do it. So my concern here is that what should be the role of private decision makers and private capital providers in ensuring corporate governance and also bent of mind towards technology adoption in the existing companies, because they occupy almost 80% of space right now. So what is your thought, how we should change this culture in the companies about corporate governance and spending on research? Your thoughts?
I think it is a badly framed question. Market will solve it if consumers start valuing innovation and start paying for services. It's not a question of mandatory law. बहुत से कानून बनते हैं, they don't help. I'll give you an example from crypto economy, which will solve this whole problem.
No, let me phrase it. Add up this. It's very easy to say that market will solve. There are talents in the company. They feel suffocated because of lack of direction from the top management to invest in R&D, new technologies and other things. Startup is one aspect, but I'm saying when you already have an ecosystem in the country, are you saying we should simply junk it and open up for new front, or we also should look at how to improvise upon them and what should be their catalyst to improve upon it? That is my concern.
You are making sweeping generalizations, which is not accurate. Bharat Kalyani is world's largest forging company. It's an Indian company. ISRO has done across sanctions. So these sweeping generalizations are a problem. There is a lot of talent in India. A lot of them do. It can do even better if the government removes a lot of friction, which is happening. They are learning. So space ka jo policy hai, it is a most innovative open policy to allow private parties to participate. With the company ISRO, which has always been very close-ended because they worked under sanctions, etc., they're very secretive, etc. It's an interesting thing. So my suggestion is there is no one solution for all problems. This problem of governance, etc., is an irrelevant problem because companies which cannot compete in a competitive economy will die. So governance will get sorted out because NSE का governance problem में क्या करूँ? वो तो सरकारी organization है, SEBI उनका regulator है. There's nothing we can do about this governance failures unless. But I'll give an example from a crypto industry. How no control, no center. It is permissionless. It is not in any territorial. कोई देश का कानून नहीं है. I have been participating. There are a lot of scams. There are a lot of frauds. वो है. But the community makes up instantly. So there was a guy who used to French था, वो Bitcoin पढ़ाता था about 2017, etc. He was in Thailand. He got robbed. He had no money, and then he put out to social media that he has been robbed. People did not realize that he's not charging for money, etc. Within 3 days, 2,000 people donated 7 crore Bitcoin to him, and he came out. अभी हाल में $300 million का हैक हुआ. एक सोलाना नेटवर्क है वर्ल्ड. I have been there. Binance के साथ एक हैक हुआ. I lost some money. Binance reimbursed me within 3 days. This $300 million are reimbursed within a week. So its reputation and private capital is providing a far higher level of service to consumers than any regulator in any country. I have been in a scam in Hong Kong.
Sir, I think what we are discussing is a very narrow, sorry to interject. We are only talking about where public health and environment is not at stake. We are only talking about technology, crypto, finance world. What about food adulteration? What about drugs adulteration? What about pollution? These are hurting the society forever. And if we allow free ecosystem to let people do what they want, by the time the society is damaged. So my point is that are we generalizing it, or we are only talking about techno-oriented or IoT services? That's my conclusion.
You are taking perceptions, and I have said guardrails have to be there. There always have to be guardrails in any market. So safety and security are absolutely not negotiable. Even if it costs money, you should establish. But it's not a question of law. You have to implement it. So आपका जो packaging का label counterfeit है ये, how do you find it? Who reports it? Who does? So I am part of a ministry of IoT security. My question was, forget the laws. How can a consumer find out if this device is following guidelines? How can he report that he suspects errors? How can he introspect? Data privacy, same issue. How will you know that some website has not taken your money and sold it somewhere? How do you find out non-compliance? How do you establish your claim, and how do you do? So the policy layer should move from formulating laws to making it easy to enforce it. Once you start making, and you can crowdsource it, it doesn't have to be government officers who have to go find and inspect and license. So the guardrails that you need, we should think through and establish, and we should make it easy to enforce them. The only thing I am saying is we have too many guardrails and we have too little compliance to those guardrails.
Okay, Vijay, we will leave it at that. Your
Yeah, sure.
point is taken. Arvind, there are 4 or 5 comments on the chat box if you can see and quickly respond.
Take down.
Are you able to see? Or
Lower in pace. Ganesh, lower pace.
No, will you start with Mr. Ramachandran and then Ramachandran and
Ramachandran, I addressed the currency issue, no?
Okay.
And how is
Sarji, what is your, I mean, it's not a political question, just to gauge where we are going. What is the report card of this government in terms of promoting?
Wrong question. I am absolute not fan of Mr. Modi. So absolutely wrong question. Everybody knows I don't at all like just admi.
No, I'm not asking. I'm not asking an opinion about him. What is?
See,
I mean, there's so much.
There's a lot of peer hype. I am involved in 3 projects. I can say firsthand.
Sure.
10,000 crore VC fund, startup funding ke liye hua. 5 years later, only 782 crores have been disbursed. Very little, lot of PR hype. Smart cities, I have been involved. Smart city mission. Kunal is an excellent IS officer. The team is excellent. People, no issues. But the overall spend by the government is only 3,000 crores. And a lot of it goes into the cities, MLA's control. L1 tender is absolutely worst idea when you're doing technology projects. So there are 3-4 projects I'm directly involved. Implementation is the issue, not headline grabbing numbers. And many of the numbers reported by the government are cooked up numbers. So koi basis nahi hai. So I am extremely skeptical of headlines. But if the policies are right, lot of things happen. Ab COVID pe dekho.
Yeah.
We invented, no, हमारा Bharat Biotech ने एक बनाया ना. So we have the capability, we have the talent, and
Sure.
despite the problems of bureaucracy, we will achieve. So, and all governments have pluses and minuses. All I'm saying is I'm not a fan of Modi, so don't ask me those
No.
questions.
I'm not asking.
I mean, there is one question on the cost of this Bitcoin mining.
I will come. I'll come. See, this is a FUD. And this is typical control mechanism. When you can't control, you create something. So first, take Bitcoin, which is a proof of which is minor. The real power is used to create a new coin, not in transfer. So if the coin has already been created, I am transferring, the power usage is very minimal. Now there are 21 million coins. 17 million have already been minted. So bulk of the production is already over. Future coin ka production zyada nahi hoga. The minting of coins only is about 1 million. Second, you have to compare it with a currency. What is the cost of the US Army protecting petrodollar in Saudi Arabia or Yemen? It is far more than the cost of currency. What is the cost of bank branches and ATMs? What is the security cost of any financial system? There are 100 times more than the cost of energy Bitcoin uses. So you have to compare the cost with an equivalent security architecture. Bitcoin is far more secure at far less energy, and it doesn't need a central government. It is, I can secure myself, I can pay. So I think this is the argument of competition. They don't know how to compete. तो फालतू का एक कहानी बनाता है. Anyway, most currencies are moving. Intel has come out with a new chip which will take 1/10 the power. So yes, technology will solve the problems, hydro energy, etc. So I will give that. Wage is a difficult issue, sir. So this is something which is difficult because, and this is the anger that the younger generation has, because salaried job nahi hai, inflation hai, things are becoming expensive, you are losing out. And the solution has to be to provide more value for bank, which is what a lot of, so for example, artist ho, you only get 10% of your song. If the macroeconomics changes, crypto economy mein jaisa hai, you get 60, 70, you are doing better. So the middleman goes out. So those are other areas. The other thing is people can do different things. So when the economy becomes diverse, I'll give an example. I had a friend who used to be the CEO of an insurance company, MetLife का India में था, Bangalore में ही था. And then he told me वो resign कर रहा, वो Mr. Khan का एक IPL, कलकत्ता का वो IPL team था, he became the general manager. They pay a lot. They have an entire industry. They have hired a lot of people. So different types of economies, different type of jobs can happen. And take radiology, take data transcription. BPO may be AI ka. You have to do a lot of works. There are a lot of companies doing it. So the answer to that is yes, wages is a problem, and in this thing, but the market will start solving it if you encourage it. So for example, the regulation should be that apart from wage, you have to pay a bit of insurance, healthcare. So the wage payment should include some country, which is what Denmark, Netherlands does it. So industry workers fall into industry groups. The employers have to pay some amount of pension to the industry lobby. And the industry union will then take care of the people, etc. So that is the guardrails have to be built so that more income can be done. That is the answer.
Okay, Mr. Arvind Tiwari, thank you very much for a brilliant presentation which everyone could understand and appreciate. And Mr. Ramchandran is asked for a separate session on crypto for you have explained it like nobody else has explained. That's a good compliment, I guess. So where we thank is for everybody to come on the screen and clap for the speaker, which I can request now. Please, everybody come on the screen, please, and let's clap. So thank you so much. And I will send the recording by tomorrow morning. I hope it has not got wiped out this time as well. I have put it in this one. And what we'll do is we'll take a break next Saturday, and next to next Saturday, as I had promised, the former associate of Aung San Suu Kyi, he was jailed for about 8 years. He will come and speak on his term in the jail, how he coped mentally with those 8 years when he was incarcerated in Yangon jail. Only no politics, and no politics of the military and this one. I look forward to more of you joining that session, so that if in case we have to go to jail, we'll also know. Thank you so much, and all the best. Thank you so much.
Don't give such kind of ideas to whoever it is about going to jail and all.
Every person who has been caught in scam has been a Tamilian. Whether it is, the Asset Meta scam or the current NSC scam. So I think maybe from
for a scam also, for a scam one has to be creative. Na? Dumb people can't do scam.
Very true, very true, very true.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Tiwari ji. Thank you, Kumar, for an excellent session. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Join next session also. Thank you.